The universe, older than time itself, and humanity, just a tiny drop in this vast cosmic ocean. But what if we're not a natural part of this universe? What if we were created for a purpose, and we still don't know what that purpose is? The Sumerians were the first civilization to write history. Before them, there was life, but no written word. They were the first to speak of gods and of beings who came from the sky. And in their texts, one name echoes again and again: Anunnaki, those who came down from the heavens. That was their title, but they were not gods in the way we imagine. They were powerful, intelligent, conscious, and they had business with us. But at the center of it all lies one burning question: why were humans created? For worship, for labor, or because there was no other choice left? According to the myths, the Anunnaki were facing a crisis on their homeworld. Their energy was fading, the atmosphere collapsing. They needed a solution, and that solution was gold. Gold could stabilize their atmosphere, but they didn't have enough on their planet. They needed another world, Earth. Leading this mission was Anu, their supreme ruler, but it was his sons who would come to Earth. Enlil the commander, strict and orderly. Enki, creative, intelligent, and deeply curious. Enki was to oversee Earth's resources, and he had one task: to find the gold. For thousands of years the Anunnaki mined the earth, but even gods have limits. The workers grew tired. The texts describe a revolt. The Anunnaki rose up against their leaders. A solution had to be found, and in that moment a radical idea emerged. A new being would be created, one designed solely for labor, one that obeyed orders, asked no questions, and never tired. But behind that idea was Enki. Enki didn't just want to build a worker. He wanted to build something more, something that could transcend time itself. Humans were more than a solution. They were a plan, a reset, perhaps even a salvation. And this creation wasn't made of mud. It was made through DNA. Enki chose a species already on Earth, what we now call Homo erectus. They were strong, resilient, but their minds were asleep. Enki infused them with his own genetic knowledge, and man awoke. The first humans were born, the first conscious breath was taken, but creation is never clean. Early prototypes failed. Some could not speak, others could not reproduce. Some simply died, but eventually a successful hybrid was formed, able to learn, able to multiply. That was us. Humans worked in the mines. They built cities, constructed temples. They even learned to write. But something else happened. Enki, either by accident or intention, gave humanity the power to question, and this was dangerous, because humans weren't just working, they were now watching. They saw the gods, and they began to wonder what made them so different. Human beings were created originally as a labor force. Their primary function was to work. But Enki, the god responsible for their creation, did more than shape physical strength. He also gave them the ability to think. Early humans were assigned to work in the mines. However, over time, they began to learn. They observed the stars. They discovered fire. They developed ways to express sound through symbols. Eventually, they created written language. This was not expected. Humans were designed to follow orders, not to question them. But once knowledge had been introduced into the system, there was no way to remove it. As the Anunnaki continued to teach humans their duties, humans gradually began to form their own thoughts and ask questions. Questions like, who are we? Why were we created? Who are they? This marked the beginning of human mythology. The first songs were composed. Offerings to the gods began. But so did doubt. Enki did not oppose this development. In fact, he supported it. He believed that humans should learn and that one day they would determine their own path. Enlil, however, disagreed. Enlil was the rigid authoritarian face of the Anunnaki system. He represented order, hierarchy, and absolute control. In his eyes, humanity was merely a temporary solution created for gold extraction, limited by design and meant to obey. But things didn't go as planned. As humans learned, they began to change. Knowledge didn't just expand the mind, it awakened something deeper. They worked the minds, then built temples, then turned their eyes toward the stars. They began to ask questions, to organize themselves, even to question the presence of the Anunnaki. To Enlil, this was deviation, a threat. The tablets record Enlil's supposed words from high councils. If this species does not know its place, balance will collapse. The intelligence granted to them is spreading beyond our control. And he knew exactly who was to blame. Enki. Enki had not merely given humans bodies, he had given them consciousness. His act of creation wasn't just functional, it was visionary. He passed on a piece of himself. Some ancient texts describe Enki as one who carried the light, who awakened the dormant spark. To him, humanity was not a servant, but a child destined to find its own path. Thus, the bond between the two brothers fractured. A silent war began. The first disputes were over how much knowledge should be given. But soon the conflict escalated to governance, guidance, and the very right to choose destiny. Enlil was disturbed by humanity's rapid growth, unchecked population, rising potential for rebellion, leaders who questioned divine commands. It all led him to one chilling thought. Was humanity a mistake? Enki believed the opposite. Humans were growing, evolving, creating, and most importantly, they were beginning to choose. To Enki, this wasn't a threat. It was a sign of hope. To Enlil, it was the collapse of control. And so, for the first time in Anunnaki history, two gods clashed, not over power, but over the fate of their creation. This wasn't just a divine disagreement. It was the first great conflict in human history. Freedom or control. Enlil established new systems to bring humanity under control. Priesthoods, temples, sacred laws. Humans no longer communicated directly with the gods. Authority stood in between, and knowledge was given only to the chosen few. In this way, the first systems of governance emerged, but every system of control eventually creates resistance. The human population grew. They began to challenge the gods. They built their own cities. They even began to declare their own gods. And Enlil made a decision. This species cannot be controlled. It must be wiped out. The flood. Was it a natural event, or was it part of a plan? The Great Deluge, described in Sumerian tablets, is almost identical to the story of Noah's flood in the Bible. But there is one key difference. While Enlil wanted to destroy humanity, Enki opposed the plan. And in secret, he warned one man. Today we call him Siusudra, or Utnapishtim, or Noah. Enki taught him how to build a vessel. He told him to gather animals, seeds, and his family, and when the flood came, he survived. Humanity was not erased, it was reset, and it began again. But this new beginning was no longer a world of freedom, it was a world under observation. Even today, the ancient Sumerian tablets continue to hide messages, layers of information we are only beginning to understand. DNA patterns, star maps, traces of electromagnetic knowledge far beyond their time? What if these aren't just symbols or religious myths? What if they are evidence? What if everything actually happened? What if we are not the result of a primitive experiment, but the inheritors of something ancient and intentional? Perhaps Enki's goal was never to create slaves. Maybe he intended to plant something deeper, a seed of thought, a seed of memory, a seed of destiny. And what if that seed is beginning to awaken right now?